Hi everyone, thank you so much for clicking to watch this video. My name is Helen. Today I'm gonna be showing you step by step on how you can deploy your first application to a Kubernetes cluster. I love hands-on a lot, and I really am very interested in showing you how these are being done instead of theories. Alright, if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly subscribe because I've got a lot of value to share with you guys. Please subscribe, click on that bell so you get notified each time I publish a new video. Okay, so in my previous videos I've actually set up a Kubernetes cluster, and I'm gonna be dropping the link in the description below. If you are yet to set up the cluster, you can go ahead and set up your cluster. You can as well make use of a playground in case you don't want to set up your own cluster. Alright, I'm actually ready. If you're ready, let's get started. Kubernetes is just an open source system for automating deployment, scaling your containers, and general management of your containerized applications. So basically, Kubernetes was built by Google based on their experience running containers in production. So because Kubernetes is an open source project, it is actually one of the best and most popular container orchestration technologies we have today. And we cannot actually use Docker to automate our deployment. We cannot really use Docker for managing like hundreds and thousands of containers, and that is why Kubernetes is here. So it is actually a container orchestration technology used to orchestrate the deployment and management of hundreds and thousands of containers in a clustered environment. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start by building a custom image and pushing it to our Docker hub, and then we use the same image to deploy our application in our Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I'm going to take you to my terminal and let's get started with our hands-on. So this is my terminal. By the way, I'm using Git Bash. So the first thing I want to do is to create a folder. And let me say this, no matter the terminal you're using or an SSH client you're using, you can actually go ahead and install Docker. But if you have Docker installed already, that is fine. But just to let you know that I have Docker installed already. I'm actually using a Docker desktop. So if you're using Linux, just install Docker and then you can continue with me. Alright, so over here, the first thing I want to do is to create a folder for this project. So I'm just gonna use mkdir and I will name this K8s project. Okay, cd K8 project. Okay, so I've switched directory to this folder, and as you can see, it is just very empty. Alright, so I want to go ahead and create a Dockerfile in this folder. How do I create a Dockerfile? I will use this text editor called Vim. So Vim, I will type Dockerfile. This D should be in capital letter. I've also taught Dockerfile. I have a video in this channel, and I'll be dropping the link in case you want to learn Dockerfile in full. I'll be dropping the link in the description below. Okay, so I'll press enter, and now I'm in my text editor. So let's create a Dockerfile. So I'm gonna use from, and the base image we'll be using is Nginx. So I'll use the latest Nginx. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to use a copy command or copy instruction to copy index.html file to the default Nginx HTML directory. Nginx/html. Okay, so the next command I want to have here is expose command. So expose this in port 80 to allow incoming traffic. And then the last instruction I would like to have here is cmd instruction. So I'll open brackets, and here I would like to have, I'll open double quotes, type nginx. I'll close this quote, and I'm gonna give comma, no space, and I will type this. Double quotes and type daemon off. I'll explain this in a moment. Okay. Okay, I omitted comma here. Great. So what this command actually means is that, so let me start explaining from here. So this from nginx latest means that we want to use the base image called nginx, okay, for our image, for our docker image. Okay, so the second command here, or the instruction here, is to copy an index.html file from our host machine to the containers directory. Okay, so after this docker file, I'm gonna be creating the index.html file in our host machine, and then it is actually the content or the code that we want to copy over to our containers directory. Okay, so this is actually the default nginx the default nginx html directory. All right, so this will be copied over to this place in our container, and then the next thing I want to do is to expose this port 80 to allow incoming traffic. Coming over to this cmd instruction, this command we have here is basically to help us start the nginx server when the container starts. Okay, so immediately the container starts, the nginx server will also start. Okay, because if this thing doesn't start, then our container will immediately exit. Okay, so this is what we'll have in our docker file. So I'll go ahead and save this. Okay, so that now that we've created our docker file, we'll go ahead and create an index.html file. So to create the index.html file, I will use vim again, index.html, and inside here I would like to paste my code. So this is just a simple HTML code, and it will display this stuff, when we finally deploy the application. All right, so let me go ahead and save this, and this has been saved. Now that we have Dockerfile and index.html file, let's go ahead and create a custom image. All right, so to get that done, run this command docker build -t to tag the image, and I would like to name this my image, and you give space and type or press dot. Okay, ensure you give space here after image. Okay, so this dot here is just to tell Docker to make use of the index.html file we have in this directory, as well as the Docker file to build our custom image. So I'll press enter, so this will start building my image. Okay, so now my image has been built, and I would like to run Docker images to view my image. As you can see, my image is here. The tag is latest image ID created 12 seconds ago. This is the size. Great. So the next thing we have to do is to tag this image, okay, because we can't just run push command to push it to Docker Hub. We have to tag it. So we have to run docker tag command, but before that, let's go to Docker Hub and create a repository. Okay, click on Docker Hub, and this is my account in Docker Hub. I'm gonna click on repositories over here, and you can see this is actually a new account. I don't have any repo here, so I'll click on create repository, and I'll name this repository K8s repo, and I will leave this as a public repository. I'll go ahead and click on create, and this repository has been created. So let me copy this, which is actually my username and the repository name. So I'll copy this like this, and let's go back to the terminal. So here I'll type docker tag and the username and the repository name. So I'll paste what I copied. Okay, it didn't actually okay, so docker tag my Docker Hub username, and this is the repository name I just created, and then we have to tag this. So the tag I would like to give this is v1, that is version 1. So you need to use a proper tagging in your environment. This can actually help you to recognize, different versions of your application. All right, so I would also like to give this image name. So the name of my image is my image. All right, and that is all. Press enter, and this has been tagged. If I run Docker images again, you'll see the tagged image. And so let's go ahead and push this to our Docker Hub. So just type docker push and copy this name here. Once you copy it, paste it here, and also include the version. The version is v1 here, so I just included it, and I press enter. So let's give it a moment to push. Okay, this has actually pushed. So what happens is that I've actually used this terminal before, and I've logged into my Docker today. That is why I didn't bother logging in first before running push command. Okay, so you might get denied. All you need to do is to run docker login first, type in your username and your password for your Docker Docker Hub before you run docker push command. So I didn't need it because I've logged in already. Okay, so let's verify that this has been pushed to my Docker Hub. I'm gonna refresh this. Okay, last pushed a minute ago. If I scroll down, as you can see v1 is here. If I click on it, you can see my image is here. All right, so now that I've pushed this to Docker Hub, the next thing is to go to let me go over to my Kubernetes cluster, and let's see how we can deploy this application to my Kubernetes cluster. I just SSH into my Kubernetes cluster. I'm actually using kubeadm, and I'm gonna be leaving the video because I've set up a cluster and I have the video in this channel. So I'm gonna be dropping the video in the description below. You can actually go ahead and make use of it. It's a kubeadm cluster. It just one master node and a worker node. Okay. To reminder, if you're enjoying this video, please click on the like this video, and also it will just take you a second to subscribe. Kindly subscribe, click on the notification bell. So let's continue. So let me be a root user, sudo su. All right, so let's check using kubectl or kubectl or kubectl. So it actually depends on the one you want to call it. Okay, so using kubectl, let's see if we have any pod running here. Okay, I don't have any pod. Let's check for deployment. So there's no deployment here. All right, let me clear this. So let's create a deployment. Okay, so via deployment we can actually specify our configuration and the image and how we want to deploy this application. So let's run a deployment command. So kubectl create deployment. Actually make use of the manifest file to create, but you can also use this via the command line. So let's run the command to create this deployment instead of using the manifest file. So kubectl create deployment. I'll name this deployment custom, or can name it app deployment. App deploy is fine, and dash image. So the image is actually the image name I have in my Docker hub. So let's check the name. This is actually the full image name. I'm gonna copy this and I'll paste it here. I'll press enter and deployment has been created. So let's verify. Kubectl get deployment. So you can type the name in full, or you just type kubectl get deploy. Press enter and you can see my deployment is running. So let's use the describe command to describe this deployment. So the command is kubectl describe deployment. The name of my deployment is app deploy. Press enter and you can see this is my deployment. It is running in the default namespace. This is the creation timestamp, this is the label, and you can see that the image is this is the image I used. This is actually running and you can see available, it is true, progressing true. All right, so this looks fine. So let's check the pod that has been created from this deployment. Okay, as you know, pod is actually the smallest object you can create in a Kubernetes cluster. So it's actually the pod that is running our application. So kubectl gets pod, and you can see this is our pod, and 1/1 it is ready. So we have one container running inside our pod. We can actually describe this pod as well. Kubectl describe pod, and the name of this pod is this. So copy this and paste it here. Press enter and it will show you the information about this pod. If you scroll down, you actually get to see the event. Okay, so this is the event. You can see successfully assigned default app deploy. This is the name of our deployment. So it assigned it to the worker node that we have, and the container image named this already is already present on machine, and he used the image to create a Docker container, and he started the Docker container. All right, so let me clear this. So now that we have our pod up and running, the next thing is to expose this deployment. So we need to expose our deployment so that it can be accessible. In case you don't know what that means, exposing it is just like to allow it to be accessible. So we'll be using a service type called node port. So the purpose is to allow this service to be accessible outside the cluster. All right, because if I run this command kube control get service, or you can see we have the default service here. So in order to expose this application so it can be accessible, let's use node port service type. Okay, so the command to expose this is kube control expose deployment. First of all, to get the name of our deployment, so we expose it kubectl or kube control get deployment, press enter. All right, app deployment. So let's go ahead and expose this. Kube control expose deployment, and the name is app deployment or app deploy. All right, so dash dash, I would like to expose this in port 80, and the type of service will be using dash dash service or dash dash type. So the service type we'll be making use of is node ports. So type node and ports. It should be, this N should be in capital letter and P in capital letter as well. Right, so this is actually the command we need to expose this application. So I'll press enter, and as you can see, expose. So if I run kube control get service, by the way, the short name for service is SVC, press enter. If you're not really that familiar with service, don't worry. In my subsequent video, I'm gonna teach the service. All right, so this is the service and this is the cluster IP. You can see the type of service we just created is node port, and this is the cluster IP, and this is mapped in port 80, and this is the node port that has been assigned to it automatically. Okay, so port 80 that we use has been mapped to this node port. All right, so let me clear my screen. So let's test what we've done. Let's test the application cluster IP. Use this command kube control. Let's see the node, the worker node that is running, that our application is running on. Okay, so kube control get node dash o wide, so we can get the full information about our worker node. You can see the worker node here. Kube kudu get pods and use dash o wide to see. So this is my pod running, and this pod, which is actually running my application, is running on worker node. Okay, so we have to use the public IP address. In case you're using this cluster, you set up your cluster using EC2 instance. Okay, but in case you use another method, you can actually get the, so let's say you're making use of your, depending on how you set up your cluster though. All right, so I'll go ahead and copy the public IP address, and then we use this port. This is the port that has been assigned to the node that is running my workload. So I'm gonna use this port right now. This is my management console, and this is my worker node. So I'll just copy this public IP address here, go to my browser, paste this 3128, need to be sure, 21286. all right, press enter. Great. Welcome to my first Kubernetes deployment about my first So our application has been deployed successfully and is up and running. This container is being orchestrated by Kubernetes. So this is actually how you can deploy your application. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video. I really appreciate you. If you are yet to subscribe, kindly subscribe. It's just gonna take one second to subscribe. Believe you me, 1 second. Okay, click on the notification bell as well. Like this video, comment if you have any question. Also share this video with your with people in your network. I sincerely appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you in my subsequent in my subsequent videos. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best in your learning journey. Thank you and bye.